Hi, if you're new around here, I'm Max and this is Rose. She's a Mercedes-Benz 310D Luton van. She's also very rusty and needs a lot of work. I plan to do most of the welding and repairs myself to get her through the first MOT in 5 years. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button to come along for the ride.
Okay, so good afternoon everyone and welcome back to another video. Now, one thing first, if you would like to, if you like this content and you frequently watch me, I come up when you recommended or you like me, I would really appreciate it if you would just click that subscribe button down below. And anyone who's currently subscribed, if you check that notification bell is ticked, I would be very, very appreciative of that. This is about making brake lines. Now, it's not going to be the best video because I haven't filmed everything. Now, in order to get the brake lines off, well, you know, just undo the things. Although, nothing's ever that simple if you've got a van as old or as rusty as mine. Or worse. Better not be worse, because that's pretty bad. So, when it came to brake hoses, when I was trying to undo the nuts, the brake hose was just spinning and I could crimp it with maul grips and squash the actual pipe, grip it so hard, but nothing was having it. So I just cut them off, cut the brake hoses off, bought new brake hoses. For making the new brake lines, bending them is really simple. Now you just line them up. I bought copper pipe, a reel of it, 25 foot I think it came in, and then we put it next to one. Always make things a bit longer because obviously you can't add a bit on, but you can always cut a bit off. So just follow the contours with your fingers, hold it. It's easier with two people, trust me. I did it with two people and even then it wasn't that easy. Just bend it with your hands. If you come to a nice 90 degree, a tool really helps. So what we had was, I borrowed my friend's, I think it did 6, 8 and 10 mil brake line. So we just put it in like the 6 because that was sort of closest to it. I think it's 5 point something. It's 3/16 brake line is what mine is. I don't know why it's Imperial and everything else in the van is metric because it's Mercedes German. When people have done a brake line, you can often tell because if it's next to another brake line or even just along a straight edge, you just see this wavy line because it comes in a coil, the brake line. So I was really on it with making the line straight. When unbending it, I wanted to be as straight as possible, make it look nice. It's just something that would have really annoyed me if I just had this wavy line going along. So for crimping the ends, I do have a bit of footage for that, but basically my friend borrowed a tool. You can buy cheap ones online, you can buy ones that goes in vice with a spinny one, you can buy all sorts of even cheaper ones. Obviously get a decent-ish one because it's your brakes, you want to do a good-ish job at least. Another thing, when it comes to bending it, if there's any bends around like, you know, 50 mil from the end of the pipe, don't put that bend in yet. Because we made that mistake and had to unbend it, put it in the tool, crimp the end on, the flaring, it's called flaring, that's it. We had to flare the end and then rebend it again because yeah, the bend gets in the way of where you need to clamp it for the jig. So once we had it all cut out, we started flaring them and I'll put that footage in now. So as you can see in that last bit, all the brake lines are done, laid out on the floor, and now ready to go in. Now I fitted the front ones, roughly, finger tight, and also into the hoses, but it came with these silly metal clips. They were like sort of U-shaped, and basically that just held the brake line in when it went to the brake hose. This is a very poor example, but as you can see there's a bracket here where the brake line comes down. and then there's this metal thing up here which holds the fitting of the brake line away from the metal. I don't know why they do it this way, but basically half of these had rusted out on mine. This is the only one left, and for the others we just use washers. So this is inside the bonnet. So here's the master cylinder, and it goes down to a little T-piece down there. Right down there you can see the 2 copper brake lines go in. The ones that come up here are still steel ones because they're totally fine, so there's not much point in changing them. Then the brake line goes along, and as you can see I've tried to make it straight as possible. To be fair, it could still be a bit better. This is where we use the tool for the 90 degree, and that came in very useful. Then it goes under there, and again it comes around to the wheel and goes into there. And it goes around the same place through the little hole in the plastic liner, and then there's a little holder in that bit of metal there, and then it goes along and then again into the brake hose. So that's all my that's the front brake lines fitted. I have one at the rear still to fit. So I'm also on this wheel here getting the bleed nipples cracked so we can bleed them. I still got to put in the rear one, but as you can see this axle is a bit of a mess with it being so old. I don't want to put that on yet because I'd like to grind back this whole axle and paint it, because that will just be a faff with the brake line on, because I don't want to get any paint on the brakes. This I had to take out the bleed nipple in order to take off the fitting for the brake pipe because it was so seized in there. Again, perks of having an old vehicle. And now I've come to do this side. I've never taken this wheel off before. I have cracked the nuts. To crack the nuts on these wheels, because they'd been on so long, on all but I think one of the front ones I was able to get off with just a standard sort of breaker bar, but these I had to get on my socket. I had to put a 2 meter long piece of metal over the end and then crack it, because I was stood on a breaker bar trying to break these nuts and nothing was having it. But now the nuts are out, all good, or bolts even, and now is to get the wheel off. Who would have thought? That's also causing an issue. No matter how hard I tug at the wheel, it's not coming off. But I've had an idea. There's a post in this hedge that sort of holds up a structure. I'm going to ratchet strap it to the wheel. Hopefully it doesn't pull down the post in there, but that's the idea, because there's no other way of getting it off. The idea of that is then I can get over the top of the brake drum that's in here and crack it off, crack the bleed nipple off, because getting to it at the moment is really hard. And anyway, you need your wheels to come off, so this needs to happen anyway. So my next task is to get this wheel off. Wow, well that was quite the task, and this spider webs was just all the way around. Oh look, there's one. There was spiders living. Yeah, there was like, sorry, I just ruined a spider's house. It's my house now. Right, these drums are pretty much impossible to get off because this gets rusted, although this doesn't look as bad as the other side, weirdly, even though the other side was easier to get off. The ratchet strap worked. I was halfway through. I never think about health and safety, which I know because everyone will point out in the comments, blah, blah, blah. To be fair, I'm now wearing shoes because it's raining and I don't like wet feet. But in the summer I don't like wearing shoes because your feet sweat. And I'm surprised that nobody ever said anything about welding, grinding or taking off the roller shutter, that I was just wearing flip-flops or sliders or whatever you want to call them. But anyway, yes, so only about halfway through it occurred to me that the wheel is now under a lot of pressure and could just come pa-dong and hit me. But yeah, but hey ho, I take the risk. Don't do that, whatever you do. But it did work, so don't just, yeah, take safety precautions. So yeah, now what I'm going to do is clean up this because it's just flaky rust. I'm not going to paint the drums, there's no point. I'm just going to clean them up with a wire wheel to make them a bit better. But then here, behind here, is said bleed nipple that I'm going on about. So you've got the brake line here, and then just above it there's a capped bleed nipple to stop crap getting in there. And what we need to do is crack that off. But yeah, now it's raining, so at least I've got a box to hide under. Okay, so I thought I'd show you the difference of the wire wheel. So they're good, but this has done my whole van so far, and as you can see, it's quite a bit smaller and less fierce. So yeah, but they last a pretty long time, to be fair. It's done everything on my van so far. But yeah, this is going to be good. It's because I had a deep crevice in the diff to get into. I couldn't do it with that one, it just wasn't deep enough anymore. And I mean, that is pretty worn down now you look at it. So over to the new one. And on some grinders it doesn't fit in, but because this, I think because this DeWalt one's the 1000 watt and it's the massive one, it does fit in. Sometimes you have to take this off, but as you can see, there's room to spare. As you can see, the brake line is test fitted, and it works very well. Fits very well, more like. I don't know if it works very well yet. But yeah, there's a few last bits. It's such a miserable job though. If I just show you around here, if you have a look on the floor, like, this isn't even under where I was working, but you can see the amount of crap that comes out. It's all out here, all over there. It's such a dirty job, and I've had a shower now, so. But as you can see under there's so much crap that's come off the diff. Yeah, so I won't be doing that task today because it's miserable, but I will be painting what I did to get the new brake line on. Okay, so good morning everyone. Now, it's a few days later. After what you saw of me installing the brake lines, I managed to get the bleed nipple cracked off in the end with some more grips, as I said, once I got the wheel off. And then my friend came over and he had a bleeder. It wasn't anything fancy that went on the reservoir tank and put pressure on it. It was literally just a hose that you connected to the bleed nipple and then went into like a little container, and then you just watched it through the hose because it was a clear hose, and when the stream was nice and steady, just tightened the bleed nipple back up with pressure on the brake, and then yeah, went round. And you start the farthest corner, so I started with that back brake line because it had the longest line on the T-piece. Then I moved to this one, and then I went to the offside outer bleed nipple because the calipers have two bleed nipples, as if you watched a previous video sorting out Rose's brakes, I'll put it in the card up here. Yeah, so it's got two bleed nipples on one caliper, so we did the outer bleed nipple, then the inner one, and then came to the driver's one, did the outer, then the inner, and then yeah, and then we have pressure in the brake pad, and yeah, something for next week. As you can see, there's light coming through there, and the brakes do work. Yeah, and we bled the clutch while we were at it because there's no clutch reservoir separate, it's off the brake reservoir, so because the brake reservoir was empty, we thought we'd check, and yeah, it was fine. First time I've had brakes since like the day after I got the van and I peeled paint off them. Yeah, anyway, so that's going to be it for this video. I'm sorry it was pretty crap. It's not really a how-to, but it'll give you a rough idea if you're trying to do it. If any questions you need and you're trying to do this, drop them in the comments below, I'm sure I can help. Yeah, so that's how I bred my brakes. I keep saying that, bred my brakes. Bled my brakes. If that was any help to you, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed already, I'd really appreciate that as well, and if you could hit the bell icon while you're there. And yeah, as I said, any questions, drop them in the comments below, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.